Hey, what's up, everybody? In this video tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at how to create the neon tube frame that we're going to use for our neon sign professional development. So the first thing we're going to have to do is here in Fusion is make sure you have your data panel open, and we can do that by simply clicking on the waffle at the top and making it look like your screen looks like in front of you right now. So what we're going to do is we need to kind of get in the habit of making sure that if you're teaching this with students is just to make sure to go out and create a project. And as you can see here, I have projects created for main sort of events or things. All right. So like here is the project folder I've created for my entire IED class for the 24-25 school year. I can see I have a project created here for an Autodesk conference. So just be thinking about that and just try to keep this limited, because as you can see, even within my Fusion account, there are countless number of projects, and it can be difficult to kind of keep things sort of organized and keep track of them. So for our case, what we're going to do is come up here, pick on new PD, and I'm going to call this the TEAI, like winter PD. We'll just call it that. That sounds good. And once my project has been created, it's going to show us where that is in the list. Now, if you don't have a large number of projects, this isn't a big deal. But if you're dealing with a lot of projects, like what I'm dealing with here, what you probably want to do is go ahead and click the pin icon. And now that is going to take that. And if I scroll all the way up, it's going to pin it towards the top. And we can see that TEAI Winter PD is here. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and double click on that to open up the project. We can see it's obviously empty. And then this is when I would come out and create a new type of folder. Okay, so within this folder, we're going to go ahead and name it, like the TEAI neon sign. Okay, and now everything that's going to be pertaining to this sign is going to go into that folder. So I'm going to go ahead and double click it. All right, and now I'm basically ready to go. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to come out here with a brand new design. I'm going to go ahead and do a save. And the frame, the sign, theme that we're going to use is going to be a heart-shaped sort of neon. So I'm going to say this is going to be my heart neon sign frame. I'm going to go ahead and just save it. And as soon as I save it, you can see it's been saved over here into our neon sign folder. Okay, so anything pertaining, like I said, to one particular sort of assembly or whatever, just make sure to give it good naming. Don't leave it untitled or use generic names. Go ahead and give it a detailed name and make sure it's being saved into a folder. That's going to help you down the line. Okay, so now that that is done, I can go ahead and I can hide that data panel by clicking on the waffle. Okay, and now we can go ahead and get things kind of started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and create a sketch. And I'm going to be picking on this flat work plane here. And the very first thing I'm going to do is basically kind of give myself the limits of my 3D printer. So the 3D printer that I've been using a lot lately and love is going to be the Bamboo X1 Carbon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just sort of set up the limits, okay, of my printer with a sketch. So for this, what I'm probably going to be doing is going up here to create and going into rectangle and then coming here to center rectangle. This is one of my favorite sketch features we're going to find within Fusion, but you can see you have to kind of dig in there to find it. So I don't know if you know this, but if you get to the feature that you're wanting, and if you want to use this regularly, what I recommend you do is come over here to the ... and click it. And you're going to see that there is a little box here that says Pin to Shortcuts. Okay, so if you click on that, all right, and once you pick on it, if you type in the S, it's going to show you your shortcuts. Okay, since we are in the sketching environment, okay, you can kind of customize these for sketching shortcuts, and then you can also create shortcuts while you're in the modeling environment as well. So we can see that center rectangle is there. I'm going to go ahead and click it, and now I'm going to go ahead and start this rectangle starting from my origin. All right, so on the Bamboo, I know that is 256 millimeters. So when you're typing in millimeters, okay, since I am dealing with an English unit file, make sure it's lowercase for the M's for the millimeters. So 256, I'm going to go ahead and hit the tab and say this is going to be 256 millimeters, okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, okay. So the issue we have is that this is actually using like true geometry, for lines that make up the actual square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out here and pick these lines here on the outside. Okay, I'm holding control. And now I'm going to come up here to line type. All right, and I'm going to pick on construction, and we can see that obviously now, okay, they are construction lines because they are dashed. Okay, why did I do that? Because construction lines are not going to have any sort of impact on the actual geometry that's now going to be following on the screen. So we're not going to have to worry about things like trimming, or anything like that where it might possibly get in the way. Okay. So like I said, what we're going to do is make sure with this frame is to make sure that this is actually going to be able to fit, okay, on this plate. And we can see that that plate is now outlined from my center rectangle. So I am going to be creating that heart-shaped sort of neon sign. So what I'm going to do first is come here to line. Okay, I'm going to hover on the origin. I'm going to come down just a little bit, and I'm going to draw a perfectly vertical line going straight up. Okay, and just to make sure that this is vertical and it's going to stay in that sort of vertical location is I'm going to come up here, okay, pick on my horizontal vertical constraint, pick on the bottom endpoint, and then go ahead and pick on the actual origin. And when we do that, we can see that it goes black. All right, so black geometry is good in this case within Fusion. All right, if it's still showing as blue, it means it needs to be constrained more until it's fully constrained. So right now, black is good, okay, indicating that this is constrained. All right, so the next part of this is I'm going to come down here to the bottom part of my heart. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw that line. And now what I'm going to do is come here to create. I'm going to come here to arc and pick on 3-point arc. I'm going to pick on this point and then pick on this point, and I'm going to pull this out until you see a tangent geometry constraint marker right here, okay, indicating that those two are now tangent, okay, and I'm going to go ahead and accept this, okay. So we're looking pretty good so far. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mirror this over, and I can do that by coming up here and picking on mirror, and I'm going to be picking on this line and then picking on this line. And now here from my mirror line, when I hit select, I can now grab this vertical line that's here in the center, and I'm going to go ahead and say okay. All right, so let's just go ahead and just see what it has done for us. Okay, if I grab on, let's say, this arc, okay, we can see that everything is staying symmetrical because we are using that mirror feature. Okay, we can see the tangency is working for us. Okay, everything's looking pretty good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull this down just a little bit, okay, and then see if I can pull these lobes up. Now, we don't want to get too close to the outside of this because what we're doing right now is we're basically creating a path, and we're going to do what we call a thin wall extrusion using this profile. And if we're doing that, it's going to be building it on the outside of that line and on the inside. So we want to make sure we have plenty of room to kind of develop this heart shape that we're looking for, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw a dimension on this vertical line here in the center, and I can see it's about 7 inches. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't take that kind of down to 8 inches. All right, like so. And now we could even be pulling up on these arcs a little bit, all right, and kind of going about it this way, okay? Might even pull them back in and leaving ourselves a little bit of room down here at the bottom, okay? At the bottom, we're going to be creating a section that's going to include a bracket, and that's actually what's going to attach to the top of our box for our neon sign. So I'm going to go ahead and just adjust this a little bit. Maybe we'll go to like 7.5 inches. And then maybe we can pull those lobes in a little bit, okay, and give ourselves a little bit more room there on the bottom like so. If I came out here and just drew a line from here straight down, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually just going to dimension this thing and just kind of see where it's at. I want this to be about 1 inch, okay? So I can see I got enough clearance there for 1 inch. I'm looking pretty good. Now, the thing is, with our frame, okay, the LED strip is going to have to snap in here, and it's going to continue around, come all the way around to the very end, okay? What means we cannot have a true connection, okay, in this intersection right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, just simply grab a line, and I'm going to come in here and just draw a line out, just like so. And now I can use trim, and I can trim that out, and we can also get rid of this line because I do want there to be a gap between these two. All right. So once I have done that, now I can go ahead and I'm just actually going to delete my vertical line. And now is when I can come in here and start adding some fillets. So we can see we have sharp corners here. That's not going to be working too well for us if we're going to be popping in that LED strip. So I'm going to come up here and get some help from our friend with the fillet. And I'm going to come in here and just put in a fillet radius just to round that over. So 0.35 is looking pretty good right there. And then let's just see if we can go ahead and put in a fillet down here as well. All right, and let's just go ahead and match it to 0.35. Okay, that's looking pretty good. That's going to round it as well. Okay, all right, so everything's looking pretty good. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with how things are looking for my profile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch. Okay, I'm going to look at this in a home view. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use extrude. All right, so something that's overlooked a lot with extrude is the fact that you have something here called thin extrude. Thin extrude is going to work kind of like the old school multi-line tool from AutoCAD if you're an AutoCAD user, where you can kind of build walls with floor plans and so on. But we can do the same thing with thin extrude. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pick on the profile. The distance that we're going to be putting this is going to be 13 millimeters. So I'm going to put in 13 millimeters. Down here with your wall location, I want to build the wall around that profile as the center. So I'm going to come here to my wall location, and I'm going to say center. And then my distance, this is going to be metric as well. We're going to call that 7 millimeters, just like so. Oh, that's my distance of 13 millimeters. And then, I'm sorry, my wall thickness is going to be 7 millimeters. Let's see how it did. Okay. And we can see it works just fine. Okay. That entire profile. All right. We're getting what we're wanting there. So let's go ahead and accept that and say, okay. And if we kind of look at this from the top view, okay, we can see that, there is that gap there. Okay. Like so. Now, if you're not happy with this, I mean, of course, you can always go back into your sketch. You can say edit. Okay. And now we can go ahead and, we can even pull a little bit closer if we choose to. Okay, and finish the sketch. And now that's even going to be updating it on that extrude. All right, pretty sweet. It's going to go ahead and update that in real time. All right, so we're looking pretty good here. Now, if you're at this PD session and you're looking at some of the parts I provided you, you're going to see that these frames are kind of flimsy. So we're going to have to go and stiffen those up, and we can do that by kind of making some impromptu, sort of brackets for these. Okay, we'll get to that in just a second. One thing I forgot to tell you to do is let's go ahead and shell this out just to make sure that there's enough room inside of that to actually put in the LED strip. So if we come here to shell, you have to make sure you're picking the very top of this, and we can see that with the highlight here. I'm going to pick on the top of that, and I'm going to type in 1 millimeter, and we're going to see it is going to shell that out just like so. So these are the exact dimensions for the LED strip that I'm going to provide you during the PD. But we can see we have a start point here, and it's going to come around. All right, and it's going to come all the way down here to the end. Now, at the bottom of this bracket that we're going to be making, we do want to make sure that this is open because that wiring and everything with the LED strip is going to have to go into the inside of the box. So we do have to remove this wall. Easy way to do that is we can come here and go to extrude. Pick the face. We can go back in this direction. Please note that this is a negative number. So we'll say that this is -1 millimeter. Okay, we're just going to shave that off and go ahead and accept that. Now that LED strip, wiring, connector, all that stuff is going to be able to go down into the box. Okay. All right. So back to kind of what I was starting is we need to go ahead and create some brackets just to kind of stiffen this thing up. Okay, make it a little bit more structurally sound so it can hold the weight of the LED strip. So I'm going to come back here and please note I flipped this to the back side of this heart-shaped frame. I'm going to create a sketch right here. And I'm just going to come out here and draw a circle like so. And I'm going to come down here and draw a circle like so as well. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and say, like this needs to be, we'll just kind of fudge some numbers here, like a 2.5 diameter. And I'm going to make this a 2.5 inch diameter as well. Okay, pull this off. And now I want to make sure that this is going to be aligned perfectly to the frame. So I can come in here underneath create and find project. I'm going to pick to the very top of this face and say, okay. And now if we look close enough, we can see that purple geometry is bleeding through. That's the geometry that was projected from the outside of the frame. This is when I can use tangent, and now I can select the circle and then select the arc, this circle, and then this arc. And now I can do the same thing over here and do the same thing between this line and this line. Okay. There's one more circle we need to draw in order to create this sort of bottom bracket, just to make sure that we're giving it some rigidity as well. So I'm going to go ahead and draw on that 2.5 circle again. And now I'm going to go ahead and say I want a tangency between the circle and the line, and the circle and the line, like so. Okay, we're looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and finish with that sketch. And now we can come in here to where we've created those sort of brackets. I'm going to pick on those profiles like so. I'm going to pull in this direction. This needs to be, we'll just say it's going to be a 1/16 of an inch. It's not a whole lot. Okay, obviously, if you want to make this bigger, you can, bring it to 0.125. That's cool. And then my operation, since this is still showing this is a red highlight, that is a cut. So we do need to make sure to switch this to a join and say okay. Now, if we flip this around, we can see that those brackets are now built right into the frame. Okay, just to kind of stiffen that thing up and make sure it's going to work for us. Okay. All right. So now we need to build the bracket itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch on the front. And what I'm going to do is I am going to use project again here and just project all this geometry over. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a little bit of a marker here starting from the midpoint. Okay. This is going to have no impact on the geometry or on the profile, because I am going to switch this over to a construction line. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here. This is a good chance to use that sketch shortcut key I talked about earlier. We can find that center point rectangle right there. And then from this endpoint here, I'm going to track up, and we can see that dashed line indicating that that's tracking. And I'm going to go ahead and just create a rectangle right there. Now, in order to make sure that this thing is going to be exactly vertically aligned, okay, to this line that we had drawn earlier, let's go ahead and just put in a horizontal vertical constraint between this point and this point, like so. Now, the bracket itself, let's just go ahead and create a bracket that's going to be 2 inches wide. And then the thickness of our bracket, okay, let's go ahead and let's bump that up to 1/8 of an inch. Okay. So the portion that's going to be sticking out down here is going to be 1/2 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in one more dimension here and just verify that that is 1/2 of an inch. Okay, like so. All right, so I'm done making this. Let me go ahead and finish with the sketch. Put this into a home view, and now let's go ahead and extrude this portion of the bracket and this portion of the bracket, and we're going to send this down. All right, there's no reason for us to actually type in an actual distance. If you just come to the back side of the frame right here, you can see it's going to determine, okay, what that distance is. Now, once again, we're seeing that red highlight. So remember, you're going to have to make sure that this is a join. So go ahead and say okay on that. And now that bracket has been created, and this is what's going to attach to the top of the box. Okay, so now we need some holes because we are going to have some bolts. Okay, the actual bolts are 832 bolts, and they're anywhere from 1/2 inch to 1 inch long. So we need to make sure we have our holes in here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch right here on top of this bracket. Okay, we have material that's in the way. So if you never use slice, come over here, find slice over in your sketch palette. And we're now slicing down to the work plane that we're currently working on. And let's come up here underneath create and find point. I'm going to go ahead and just pick 2 points out here. Okay, just like so. So one on one side, one on the other. And I'm going to be making sure by using the horizontal vertical constraint that this point is horizontally aligned, okay, with that point. Okay, I'm liking that. All right, so the actual holes in the box are 1.5 inches apart. So let's go ahead and just say, hey, this point to this point, this needs to be 1.5 inches away from each other. The total bracket itself is 2. Okay, so that means we have a difference of 0.5, which we divide by 2, which is meaning that from here to here, this needs to be 1/4 of an inch, just like so. And I'm going to come out here and do a little inspect, and I'm going to ask it how far this is from here to here. Okay, see what the actual distance is. Let's do that again. Let's go point to point. Point to point is indicating that that is a distance of 0.512. So now what I can do is I can take 0.512 divided by 2, and we can kind of determine what that dimension is. So I'm going to say dimension from this point to this point, I'm going to say is 0.512 divided by 2. And I'm going to go ahead and accept that, and we can see that distance is 0.256. Since I went in earlier and applied that horizontal constraint between these 2 points, this thing is moving exactly with the dimension that we just put on the first point. So this thing is fully constrained. You can tell if the points turn black like they are showing here, it is fully constrained. Let's go ahead and finish with the sketch. And now we can go ahead and create our holes. So coming up here to the hole feature, I'm going to come and pick on my first point and then pick on the second point. All right. So I said that the bolts we're going to use are 832s. So I'm going to come up here to my hole type. I'm going to make sure it's simple. My hole tap type, I don't want to be simple. I actually want this to be tapped. Okay. And then for my extents, it's going to go all the way through the bracket. So I'm just going to say all. Okay. Since these are going to be for an 832 size bolt, my size down here, I'm just going to come and find my number 8 size, which is a diameter of 0.164. Okay, and the only thing I'm going to tell you to do is just make sure you do not select modeled. Okay, we're going to have those smooth wall holes. I know it appears, it looks like there's threads, but we want it to be a smooth wall because we don't want that modeled thread to show up in the actual 3D print. So I'm now going to go ahead and say okay. All right, so there we go. All right, that is how that little frame is going to look for our heart-shaped neon. So as far as materials go at this time, I'm going to be using my X1 carbon. Like I said, that is a PLA material that most people are going to be printing with. Unfortunately, I don't know why this is. I need to talk to my friends at Autodesk. But if you go into physical material, so if you come here to the top, okay, and pick on the name of this, or right click on this and come down to physical material. If we come into this dialog box, come down to plastic, okay, we come down and look for PLA, okay, you are going to see that PLA is nowhere to be found. I'm just going to go ahead and just drag in ABS plastic at this time. Okay, we can see it's a white ABS plastic, but I'm going to come in here and just edit this just a little bit. So I'm going to right click here on the ABS plastic that is in this design. So if you right click and say edit, now we can go ahead and give it a new name. So the color I'm going to use is black. All right, that's kind of what keeps the mystery of the neon, is that black color. I'm going to come here to advanced, go into appearance, and then come down here and pick on color. And then you can see your basic colors here. You can also pick out of this swatch as well, but we're just going to use a standard black. So I'm going to say okay. I'm going to hit apply, and now I'm going to go ahead and cancel out. So I don't know why it's not updating it here. We can see that that is applied and it's working great, but apparently it's just being lazy. But now here's the one thing you can remember. If you're going to be creating other individual components and you want to use the same sort of, black ABS plastic, what I recommend you do is right click on this and come down and pick on add to favorites. And now it's going to add it to your favorites, and you can use that same material every single time on other individual files instead of just this one. So I'm going to go ahead and close on that. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this up. Say okay. And now that's going to be saved safe and sound over here in your TEAI neon sign.